back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all for sticking with me through all of these episodes as I continue to detail the journey of our daughter, JC, and her journey with choroid plexus carcinoma. One of the cool things that has come out of this battle and out of our fight is being able to meet other parents, organizations, families, and survivors and talking about their stories and allowing them to spread their message as well. So today I have with me Lulu, who is mother to Raymond, and he is currently battling leukemia. And I wanted to allow her to share her story and also to share his story. So the floor is yours, Lulu.
Hi, my name is Lulu. I am mother to Raymond. He's an 8-year-old boy, which he's still currently fighting leukemia. And other than leukemia, he also has NF1, which a lot of people know it as neurofibromatosis, which that also causes for him to have like big tumors behind his eyes or any other nerve. And he has to get checked every 6 months with the ophthalmologist to see that everything is clear.
And so what type of, so leukemia is one of the more well-known words. People hear leukemia and they say a lot of stupid things like it's a good cancer. We all know that's BS, right? But what
Yes.
type of symptoms did he have before he was diagnosed with this?
Okay, before he got diagnosed 6 months after his 6th birthday, which he turned 6 on February. He got started with symptoms such as they thought it was growing pains. He had just started school too, the first year of first grade. He went only to school the 2 first weeks of school. With the pains, we thought it was just maybe because the weekend before he stopped going to school, we had went swimming. So we thought about maybe it was just soreness of his bones, his muscles. That Friday that he stopped going to school was like the 3rd day that he was complaining about bone pain, which we thought also it was growing pains. We thought maybe it's just a growth sprout. His feet are hurting, he's growing, he's stretching, maybe he's running because he's back to school. They're doing something at school, so we thought it was just maybe soreness. That Friday that he came back from school, I had picked him up from the bus because my kids ride the bus. He started limping, which I noticed that when we were walking back home. And I asked him, what's wrong? He's like, my bones hurt, my feet hurt, my legs hurt. So I just told him, you know what, keep on walking. He wanted me to carry him, but I couldn't because I had another little one. So if me carrying him would cause me to carry the other one. And because my daughter, she's like, oh, you're carrying him, you got to carry me too. You're doing this to him, you got to do this to me. So I just told him, you know, I keep on walking. We're going to be home in a couple minutes. We're not that far from home. That Friday was the last Friday he attended. He stopped eating. He stopped walking. That Saturday when he woke up, I took him to the hospital. What was it? I took him in the hospital in the afternoon because he didn't want to eat nothing. From that Friday he came back from school, I gave him all kinds of drinks. I gave him Pedialyte. I gave him body armor because I thought it was maybe something that he got to have hydrated. Maybe, and then he started with fevers. So I took him to the hospital. It turns out that he was just dehydrated. And the bones, him hurting, typical, they confuse him as growing pains. They told me, no, it's growing pains. He's fine. They checked him on his elbow because from one day to another one, he stopped moving his hands. He stopped moving his left elbow and he was stiff. So they checked him. They told me that he had a shattered elbow. He had a shattered elbow, which probably caused him from a fall, but it wasn't too bad that he did not say nothing. It did not cause him no pain or nothing. After that, all they gave him was a sling. They gave him Tylenol. They gave him ibuprofen, and they sent us back home. From there, that was that Saturday of the same week. We went back home. We were home Sunday. He wasn't getting any better. He was complaining about pain. He had totally stopped walking. I had to take him to the restroom, carrying him, bring him back, shower him. He did not eat. I tried everything from soups to drinks to all kinds of stuff. He wouldn't drink it. He wouldn't eat it. Fevers will just come and go, come and go. Night sweats. After night sweats, he just started sweating all the time. From there, that was a Sunday. Monday, I took him back to another hospital. And I told him the same thing. I was like, you know, I had just brought Raymond to the hospital. On Saturday, they told me that he only had growing pains. I don't know what's wrong. It's not normal. This is not him. So They checked him. They did all kinds of blood tests. They ran CBCs, metabolic panels. He was dehydrated because he wouldn't drink nothing since that Friday. From there, all they told me the same thing. Growing pains, make him stand up because maybe he's just trying to be funny. He's 6 years old. Kids are like that. And that's when I got mad and I told him, you know what? This is bullshit. I was like, why are you trying to tell me to make my son stand up when I know he's not like this? He's an active boy. He doesn't talk. I was like, but he's really active. He runs. He's doing what a 6-year-old has to do. So they did actually make him put him in front of me. I put him up and he fell. So the doctors are like, oh no, he's just trying to be funny. He could walk. And they made him walk while I was holding him from the bottom of his armpits. And I was holding him and they're like, no, you can't hold him. He has to walk. I'm like, he can't walk. You can't force the kid to walk when he can't. So he fell to the floor and I grabbed him and I told him, no, I'm going to go to another hospital. I can't do this. I can't stick with you or I need somebody else to come and help me. So they ended up putting somebody else. He did got fluids back again. All they told me was just CBCs, all blood tests are coming back normal. He's fine. It's just growing pains again. Took him back home. Same thing. They gave him Tylenol. They gave him ibuprofen. He had fluids at the hospital. And then we went back home. Wednesday, after I took my daughter to school, I came back home. I knew Raymond was not doing good because he went back again with high fevers. Tylenol wasn't helping. Ibuprofen wasn't helping. I gave him teas. I gave him all sorts of medication and nothing was helping. So I went back home and I told my mom crying. I was like, you know what? I don't know what's wrong with Raymond. He stopped walking. That's not normal. I need to take him to the hospital. So she did tell me, you know what? Get my car. Go to the hospital. If anything, just let us know. I took him back to the hospital. They also ran all kinds of tests. They seen that he wasn't walking. 9 in the morning to 12 a.m. They came up to us and they told us, you know what? We don't know what's wrong with him. We're trying to figure out because he is tacky. He has high blood pressure. He has high fevers and we don't know what's going on. So after that, they told us there's 3 hospitals that could take him in. I don't remember one, but I remember that one of them is Loma Linda and the other one's Chalk, which is in Orange County. Whichever one has a bed available, they'll take us in. So Loma Linda was the one that had a bed available, and they took us to Melinda with ambulance. So we went there. We were there for about 2 weeks before he still got diagnosed with trying to figure out what was going on, what was happening, why was he having all these symptoms when they didn't know. So after that, he was again like they were just on fluids. They were trying to give him Pediasure. He wouldn't drink it. His bones at the beginning, it would help ice packs, and then all of a sudden they'll stop working for him. Then they'll put him heat pads wherever his bones were hurt and they would help him. But then after that, it wouldn't help him at all. So they were like, what's going on? We don't know. His tests are coming back out normal. He is dehydrated, just like they told us in the other hospitals. But other than that, we don't know what's going on. So let's say this week he's doing horrible. They gave him morphine, they gave him fentanyl, they gave him pitocin, they gave him all kinds of medicine, you name them. A lot, I just forgot, but strong medication. They would help him, and all of a sudden they'll stop helping him. And then they'll like, okay, let's try this, and then they'll help again, and then all of a sudden they'll just stop working on him. And then they just kept on giving him medication by medication by medication. So let's say yesterday he's in a scale of 100 of pain. Today he wakes up perfectly fine, like not crying. Still wouldn't walk, but not crying. He was happy. He was just back to normal. So since his tests were coming out normal of what they say, they came up to me and they told me, oh, Raymond's doing better. You want to go home today? We give you morphine. Handle the pain at home. If anything happens, come back. Or stay and we'll figure out what's going on. So mother instinct. I knew something was going on. Something was telling me, don't go home. I told him, you know what? I'm staying here. I'm not going home because I already went to 2 different hospitals 3 different times, and this is the third hospital. A fourth time, you guys don't know what's going on. This is not normal. This is not Raymond. So let's say today he's doing fine. Tomorrow he wakes up worse than what he was the week that we were in the hospitals. From there, they came and they're like, he was fine yesterday. What's going on? Why is he like this? So we were still there. They were still trying to run tests, figure out. They were just making assumptions. You know what? He has childhood with arthritis, or he has bone cancer. They just started bringing everything up. Started making my head just spin with all these diagnoses that they were saying when they actually had no diagnosis yet. So an oncologist came in and she asked, she presented herself. She said that she was an oncologist. She didn't know what was going on, but by the symptoms, she maybe thought it was just a cancer. Not certain, but maybe it was just a cancer. From there, they did a biopsy, a bone marrow biopsy. They took him to do an MRI, figure out what was going on with his, first with his elbow, which it was also just a shattered elbow that he had that they had told us already. From there, he did have MRIs trying to figure out what was going on before the oncologist took him. They did about 4 MRIs. They did some brain scans. They did CT scans trying to figure out if something was going on inside his body that was just maybe causing him to have all the symptoms. It's okay.
Hey. Dice mitad y mitad o nomás son 6:16. Yeah.
Está bien, estoy en mi lonche. Sorry.
No problem.
So from there, he blew me off. Yeah, he had went to go get some CT scans, MRI scans, brain scans, trying to figure out if something was going inside his body that was just making him have that pain. From there, they took him to get a bone marrow biopsy. They told me that since it was a 3-day weekend, I wasn't gonna be able to know what was going on until the Tuesday. They took him in to get a Friday the test. On Tuesday, I felt like those days were super long because they would just come in, give him medication for just to control the pain, and not knowing what was happening. Why was he like that when he was just normal boy? He was always walking around, always having a smile on him. And from there, August 30th, that's when they came in. They took me out the room. I automatically knew something was going on. As soon as I knew they called me, you know what, Mom, we gotta talk to you. You gotta come outside. I was like, I know something's going on. They just don't bring you out the room just for nothing. So they took me out the room, and that's when they did the rounds. They were outside because the hospital is a teaching hospital too. So there were students, and then there was an oncologist right there. And then she came up to me and she just said, you know what? Your son has cancer. He has to start treatment, not now, but he has to start treatment, and he has leukemia. We're going to try to figure out what leukemia he has with more further testing, because he did not present any symptoms just for leukemia, just the growing pains. From there, he got his place on September, like the 3rd. And from there, we started our journey.
So for those of you who don't know, leukemia has many, many different types of variants. So it's not just a diagnosis of leukemia, but the type of that it is, which will also make a difference in the type of treatments and how they move forward, and how to, whether it's radiation or chemo or a combination or whatever. All of these things are factors based on the type that it is. And every cancer has different types of variants, but leukemia, there's a wide range. But you said a lot in the fact that is very, very common in the pediatric cancer world is misdiagnosis for a long period of time. Whether it's the doctors are looking for the treat 'em and street 'em, that very quick answer, looking at symptoms and coming up with other reasons. The growing pains, that is actually a very, very common misconception within pediatric cancer, is that it's growing pains or, bone pain, that type of thing. GI issues are another big issue within pediatric cancer that are looked at as other things. And so it's a big problem, right? It's a big problem that we have, that doctors are not looking for that big reason. That cancer is not something that's on their radar. And maybe it shouldn't be on their radar all the time, because you don't want a child coming in that's constipated and saying, okay, they've got brain cancer. However, that with our daughter, that's the way that it was. And it was diagnosed as a GI issue for weeks and weeks and weeks, turning out to be all the symptoms lined up with brain cancer. And if you look at the symptoms of what Raymond was going through, and you could probably find 6 or 7 other things that it could have been, and not cancer is probably the least that they're looking for. But we have to really, and you, like you said too, you have a mother's instinct that there's something wrong with your child, that they're not how they are normally. You know what their baselines are, and you know how they act on a daily basis, and the way that he was reacting or acting to on a daily basis, or reacting to things that were happening to him, were not who he was. They weren't his personality, and you fought for that, which is something I think every parent will do. But a lot of us, I think, will take the word of the doctor 100% and just be like, okay, we're just going to roll with it. We're going to go with what you say. And you would have just gone home. You didn't go home. You kept fighting for that answer, fighting for letting them know that something was wrong. And that's an amazing trait. And to your credit and to his, to be able to figure out what's wrong. And, it's honestly, that's the best advice I think that I can ever give, is that be the best advocate for your child when you know something's not right.
Yes.
And how is he currently doing right now? And what stage of treatment is he in?
Right now, he's in remission. He just achieved remission. He achieved remission right now. He is still getting treatment. He's still drinking chemo at home, which he has to drink, like a lot of you guys know, mercaptopurine, methotrexate. He has to go every 3 months to the hospital to get an LP test, and they do vincristine with also methotrexate on the spine. He ends treatment on October supposedly, but they made a mistake on his chart. I don't know how they could make mistakes like that too, but they move it into November now. So he rings his bell in November, and we still go get seen every 4 or 5 more years.
Well, you know what? It's the mistakes. That's something that really is just, it's unfathomable to me. And the amount of things that I've heard so far doing this podcast from parents, and the things that have either been missed or said, even in bedside manner, is really incredible. I would say that a vast majority, if to be honest with you, it's a very small minority of doctors that I don't think put all of their effort in, and most of them do, and most of them care 100%. And these kids are treated like adults, and not, or they're respected like adults, but they're not treated like patient numbers. And it's a shame to see mistakes that are made that can either further treatment, or maybe the wrong treatments happen. But we're gonna move forward and pray that everything is good, and that November date comes up really quick, and he gets to ring that bell and show just how tough he is, and the fact that he was able to beat this even when all these odds seem to be stacked against him. So I wish it could be next month, but I'm glad that there is a kind of an end date in sight, which is really awesome. So that's good to hear.
And we were excited this last time we went, maybe 2 weeks ago, because we knew that October 6th was the day that he was going to ring his bell. So we went in there. He had already delayed 1 LP because he had a cough. So we went in there 2 weeks ago, and they told us that they had made a mistake on his chart, and his end date wasn't on October. It had to be moved to November, which it was just a problem, because I did tell them, I was like, how you guys can make mistakes like this and delayed their treatment, basically. I was like, because you guys said his end of treatment was October. How are you guys going to move it just to November? Say, oh, we made a mistake. Just simple like that. I was like, when you guys don't even know what he has been through, there was with Raymond, we had more downs than ups in this treatment. We were constantly in the hospital. We would come home 2-3 days, and because of the fever spikes, we'll run back to the hospital. We'll come back home, be a week at home, go to clinic, and his medication would always be, you know what, we have to up his dose, we have to lower his dose, we have to put more, we have to put less. And it wasn't an exact dose that he had, until now that we're almost done. So that was my question to the oncologist too. And I was like, how are you guys just giving them medications when you guys are giving them more? And you guys just say, oh, it's because we want them counts to drop. And then you guys give them less. And then you guys are like, okay, we're trying to find exact dose for their age and for their height. I was like, you guys should have something like that already, depending on their age, on their height, on their weight. I was like, you guys just can't be giving them medication just and then say, you know what, his counts are up. Okay, let's lower it. His counts are down. Let's give him more. And with Raymond, it was just like that. Every time we'll go to the clinic, it's like, okay, he's doing fine. We're gonna give him this dose. We'll go back again. Okay, his counts drop. We're gonna give him more. And it was just like that. Every time we would go, it was just, which also caused him to be neutropenic. He is intermediate metabolizer. He just has a lot of things that they don't tell you about chemo side effects.
Yep. The side effects, and I had this conversation on the last episode as well with my last guest, is that the side effects are often, if not all the time, worse than the actual chemo treatments or the cancer itself. What's supposed to make you better, what's supposed to remove this cancer from your body, what's supposed to rid you of it, often leaves you with the side effects immediately, but also the lifetime side effects that will come with these treatments that are meant to keep you alive. And it really is a shame. And when you look at it as adults, we're built in a way that we can tell you what's wrong, and we can describe for you where it hurts, how it hurts, and we can regulate how much we need in order to feel better. And kids, as even young as they are extremely smart when it comes to going through these treatments, but they can't describe in a way that an adult can what's going on and how we need to treat it. And so therefore, what's happening to their bodies, if unless you see it firsthand, you'll never truly understand what it does to them, on the inside, but also what you see on the outside. And the long-term side effects of these treatments are very detrimental. There's cognitive delays. Obviously, the hair loss is the one thing people really associate with it, which is probably the least of all the worries. There's hearing loss, there's infertility, and there's so much that comes along with it that you get a 5-page document when they're going to get their chemo, and 4 of those pages are side effects and what could happen and what may happen, and
And
they're
they
even
just,
listed as.
yeah. And they
No, go
just
ahead.
tell you the side effects that they know. The side effects that they learned about. They don't tell you this like I tell other people. They don't tell you the side effects on those tiny little words that we can't read. I was like, we know about, like you say, hair loss, infertility. They also told me when Raymond started treatment, because of his age, typically they can't do nothing about it. But if he was a teen, they would, and I don't know if they tell this to everybody, but they did tell us that if Raymond would have been a teenager, being a boy, they'll make him go to like a sperm bank, give his sperm to just freeze it in case if he has infertility because of the chemo. He has something where he could do it. And I started crying. I was like, because how would they think that our kids feel when they tell them, especially boys too, like, you have to go do this because there's a possibility that you can't have kids, or to us females too. And I was like, I just started crying, and I was like, how would they just come up to you all with no filter and just tell you, you're lucky he's not a teenager because he would have to do this.
There is definitely something to be said about the bedside manner and how we speak to parents and to kids that are going through this and that are scared and unsure of what's going to happen. And the talk of infertility is really a big one. It's come up probably in every episode that I've done in the past 6 months. Is that for boys, they at certain ages they can do biopsies, testicular biopsies, and they can freeze it. Girls, they can freeze their eggs, but you're having these conversations with the doctor, and are you having this conversation with your 6-year-old daughter or son, or are you making the decision as a parent? And how do you have that conversation? How do you have even that thought? You're telling me that because you're trying to save my child's life, that they'll never be able to have a child again in their life, And how do you have that conversation? This is part of the issue and part of something that I think that this podcast allows people to make it more aware to the world, but also part of what we do in trying to fight and advocate is that these treatments need to be less toxic. They need to do less to a child's body. We need to, as parents, not be told that. So when they're going through chemo, if when they go to the bathroom or when they sneeze or something, make sure you don't get anything on you. Make sure you don't get it on you because it could be toxic to your skin. And for me, it was always, I don't give a damn about that. What is it? What's going into their body? And you're telling me to worry about getting it on my hands?
I was like that
Is
at the
just such a
beginning.
thing.
I was like that at the beginning because they would come up to me and because I was the only one with Raymond in the hospital, and I'm always the only one in there with him. If he has to run to the hospital, I'm always there. Nobody else, no other family member, nobody else. I'm just there. So they would come up to me and they'll tell me, you have to put gloves on if you have to give him his chemo. You have to, you can't wash the clothes with him. You guys have, if he pees his underwear, you have to wash it right away. You can't touch it with your bare hands. At the beginning, I was kind of like trying to do what they were telling me. But then after that, I was like you say, they're already having all that medication in their body. What's doing to their body inside that we cannot do it with us just holding something from what they're doing they have, or just, and it's something that it's affecting. The chemo is inside their body, ours is just outside, we're just touching them. They did tell me too, like, oh, you cannot sleep with Raymond because his sweat is bad for you, he can't touch you, keep a distance. I was like, how am I gonna keep a distance with my own son? I was like, when they're used to sleeping with me, I was like, they're my babies, I'm not gonna be keeping a distance. He did wear diapers at the beginning because it did affect him a lot, and it still affects him to this age where he knows that we're gonna go to a clinic and he just starts crying and he says, Mom, I don't want to go, I'm having flashbacks, I don't want to go no more. And he spikes a fever, and I tell him, son, you know what? We'll probably have to go back to the hospital. He starts crying. He's like, nope, I don't want to go. This is why I don't want to tell you when I have fevers or when I don't feel good, because I don't want to go to the hospital no more. I want this to be over. So it does hurt me because us as parents, seeing our kids going through that and having another healthy child is just so different, because with a healthy one, you could give him medication. You know, he's sick, give him Tylenol. He's gonna do fine. Like my daughter right now, she's sick at home. I give her Tylenol, she's gonna be better tomorrow. But with Raymond, it's a call to an oncologist. And for everything, it's just Raymond spiked the fever. What do I do? It's asking them for permission for me to do something to my son when it wasn't like that before.
Yeah, it's that's the other thing is that this diagnosis changes you for life because whether you're in our case our child passed away and but moving forward and once that diagnosis happens from then and to the end of time, a bruise on your child is never just a bruise anymore. A cold is never just a cold anymore. You have to treat it a lot differently. Now we have two other daughters, and it's one of those things where you treat that differently, but you're also on edge at any moment.
Yes.
When with these cancer diagnoses, it's we weren't cancer parents until the day we were, and you never think that that's where the diagnosis is going. And so you spend your life on the edge. You spend your PTSD within this community is a real thing. Scanxiety is a real thing, and it's something that affects us all. And it's you can't just get up in the morning and have your child have a new bruise on their leg and think, oh, it's no big deal, they were just roughhousing. No, that's something serious that you have to watch now. And so everybody, I think, believes that, okay, once the common misconception again, once their hair grows back, they must be fine. Once they're in remission, they must be fine. Once they ring that bell, everything's good. And then the support all goes away. So, and the reality is, I think that once they ring that bell, that's when the fight really starts. And it's not meant to scare people or anything. It's meant to say that that's when you're on watch from now on. You're not going to active treatment, but you're on watch. You're making sure
Yeah, that's what
everything
I
is,
tell my family members too. I tell my family members, he is not cancer free. It's monitored. He rings his bell, but it's not called cancer free. I was like, he rings his bell because that's his end of treatment. He stops drinking chemo at home. We have 5 more years. And I was like, and after those 5 more years, we don't know if cancer could come back in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Like, they still have a possibility, even though they tell you, oh, he doesn't have a chance. He still has a chance to relapse. We don't know. Any little thing nowadays could trigger it and start treatment back again. I was like, and then this time around, it'll be worse because he's gonna have harder treatment, more stuff. And I was like, and that's just hard because that's still in the back of your head. Like you say, having other kids is still like my daughter. She has a bruise. It also triggers me like, oh, that's how Raymond started. She comes up to me, Mom, my bones hurt. Oh my God, we're gonna start again. I hope it's not the same thing. It's just something that just keeps on my mind.